VR is changing, and not always, but usually for the better. Waltz of the Wizard's bold new step into controller-free gameplay, Alien Rogue Incursion's shaky Quest 3 launch, and a massive studio expansion from the developers of Ghosts of Tabor. These are a few things I'll be discussing in this pilot episode of my VR gaming news series. Let's get right into it though with the first story. To start us off, Waltz of the Wizard just became the first PSVR 2 game with full-on hand tracking. No controllers, no buttons, just your hands. This update lets you cast magic and interact with objects using nothing but gestures. Now, hand tracking games do already exist for other platforms, but this in particular is a big leap forward for the PlayStation VR ecosystem. Add in the fact that your questionably mistreated Skull Companion can even react to hand gestures, and you've got a touch more immersion in an already immersive update. While hand tracking isn't quite ready to replace controllers in VR at large, it's on the right path. As a bonus for Quest players, these upgraded hand tracking features are now rolling out to standalone headsets as well. So if you've been enjoying hand tracking on Quest, expect even smoother and more responsive interactions, at least in Waltz of the Wizard. And in awkward news, Alien Rogue Incursion finally dropped on the Quest 3, but let's just say it's not exactly the ideal way to play. The game originally launched on PCVR and PSVR 2 around Christmas and was actually well received. If you want to see my full thoughts on the PCVR version, check out my review, link in the description. But since it hit standalone, the reception hasn't been good. While the game itself still has much of its relative charm, a lot of players are calling the Quest 3 version severely underwhelming. The atmosphere itself, the thing that makes the Alien series actually feel terrifying, is kinda just missing from this one. Reports mention stuttering gameplay, a major visual downgrade when it comes to lighting, and drastically reduced texture quality amongst other things. A writer at Tom's Guide literally called it the Alien VR game of their dreams, except on Quest 3. Even Mixed Reality News straight up recommended playing it on any other platform. But there is some good news. The developers at Survios have responded in a letter to Upload VR saying patch 1.01 is coming. Supposedly, it's supposed to improve the atmosphere of the game by fixing performance issues, and it's supposed to also include some general bug fixes. This patch should largely tackle the earlier mentioned problems, but only time will tell. Next up, it looks like Combat Waffle Studio is leveling up in a big way. The developers behind Ghosts of Tabor are expanding their studio. They're moving from a 7,000 square foot space to a massive 23,000 square foot facility in comparison. That's over 3 times the space, which means it's reasonable to expect big changes are coming. If you don't know, Ghosts of Tabor is one of 2 major Escape from Tarkov style VR games out right now, and to my genuine surprise, it's doing well. Since launch, the game has pulled in over 20 million in sales, and with backing from VR kingpin Meta, it's no surprise they're looking to scale up. They're not just expanding their space either, they're hiring an additional 100 developers to ramp up production. That's a huge move for a VR studio, especially in a genre that's still carving out its niche, and in an industry that has smaller studios leaving the VR ecosystem regularly. According to Combat Waffle, this new space will have dedicated areas for development meetings, VR testing, motion capture, and something they're calling security-focused development zones. Now, that last one sounds like a big deal because if you've been following Ghosts of Tabor, you know Combat Waffle has been trying to combat cheaters. Back in May of last year, they launched Operation Integrity Sweep, a major effort to combat cheating in their games. But they didn't just stop there, they also introduced the Virtual Reality Integrity Coalition, or VRIC. The VRIC is essentially a network of developers who agree that if someone cheats in one game under the coalition, they're banned from every game under the coalition. It goes without saying that's a pretty big deterrent for tackling cheating across multiple VR titles. Full transparency though, I couldn't find an official list of which developers are actually a part of the VRIC, so while the idea sounds amazing, it's hard to say just how widespread the impact really is or could be. Either way, Combat Waffle is making some serious moves, and with this level of investment, Ghosts of Tabor might find itself surpassing its main VR competition, Contractor Showdown Exfil Zone. I reviewed that game too, link in the description. Now, let's shift gears and talk about patches, because some of VR's biggest games just got some major updates, and a couple of them might actually change the way you play. First up, Skydance's Behemoth just dropped a huge patch last week, and when I say huge, I mean over 700 fixes. The devs at Skydance Games went all in, tackling everything, from arrows randomly bouncing off NPCs to a bug that straight up prevented some Quest 2 and 3 players from launching the game through Steam VR. If you want to hear my full thoughts on the original state of the game and the subsequent Week 1 patch, check out my review, link in the description. Now, another game I've reviewed, Stellar Plans, is also getting a massive patch. Developer Universe Ocean is calling this one Stellar Plans 2.0, which sounds like a big deal, and honestly, it needs to be. The game was already super ambitious when it launched. It's a VR adventure shooter with a heavy sci-fi aesthetic. Personally, I felt like it was missing something at the time. If this update is as big as they're teasing though, Stellar Plans might actually shape up to be another impressive VR title this year. And if you want me to review that patch, let me know in the comments. Continuing on the topic of major patches, Hexwind just released its Mission Revamp Part 1 patch, and it's bringing some pretty big gameplay changes. The most notable being updated combat pacing that should smooth out the game's difficulty curve. The developers seem confident players will like this improvement, but if you're playing on a Quest headset, you might be waiting a bit longer. This patch at the time of writing isn't reflected on the update section for standalone headsets. All that said, thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please tap that thumbs up for a small channel. And if you want to stay on top of everything VR gaming, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my regular uploads. Check out the description for links to my reviews of some of the games we've talked about today, plus sources if you want to dive deeper into these topics. And before you go, let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on these updates and this new video format? Would you like it longer? Would you like it weekly? Thanks for watching.